Socrates said, "I know that I know nothing." Sounds humble, even wise. But here's what most people miss. The statement isn't about humility, but it's about a superpower. Because the moment you think you know something, you stop learning it. And the things you think you know are often the very things holding you back from growth. Today, we're talking about why it's so hard to learn what you think you already know and why unlearning might be the most important skill you can develop. Welcome back to Spark and Hustle. I'm your host, Puneet Kaur, and today we're exploring one of the most challenging aspects of personal growth, letting go of what you think you know so you can actually learn. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a business mentor years ago. I was explaining my strategy for growing the company, laying out my plans, all my ideas, all my knowledge about how things should work. I was confident I had it figured out. He listened patiently and then asked, "How's that working for you so far?" I paused. The honest answer was, "Not great. I wasn't getting the results I wanted, but I had explanations for why. External factors, market conditions, other people's failures. My knowledge was sound, I thought. It was just the execution or the circumstances that were the problem." He smiled and said, the most dangerous words in business are "I know," because the moment you say "I know," you stop being curious. You stop asking questions. You stop learning. And in a changing world, that's how you become obsolete. That hit hard because he was right. I had convinced myself I knew how to grow a business, and that conviction, that certainty was blinding me to what I needed to learn. The Stoics understood this problem intimately. Epictetus said, "It's impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." This isn't just about intellectual humility. It's about the actual mechanism of learning. Your brain literally can't take in new information effectively when it's convinced it already has the answers. Research from Stanford University's psychology department on learning and cognitive bias has revealed something fascinating. People who rate themselves as experts in a domain are significantly less likely to update their beliefs when presented with contradictory evidence compared to people who rate themselves as novices. The study showed that perceived expertise creates a kind of cognitive armor that blocks new information from penetrating. This is called the curse of knowledge. Once you think you know something, then knowledge becomes a filter through which you analyze all new information. Information that confirms what you think you know gets accepted. Information that contradicts, it gets rejected or rationalized away. You stop learning because you've convinced yourself you've already learned everything. And here's a really insidious part. The more successful you've been with a particular approach or belief, the harder it is to let go of it, even when circumstances change and that approach or belief no longer serves you. Today, we're going to explore how to recognize when your knowledge has become an obstacle, how to cultivate that Zen Buddhist mantra, which is called the beginner's mind, and how to continuously unlearn and relearn so you can keep growing instead of stagnating. Because in a rapidly changing world, the ability to unlearn might be more valuable than the ability to learn. Let's start by understanding why certainty feels so good and why it's actually dangerous. Certainty feels good because uncertainty feels threatening. Your brain is designed to predict the future so it can keep you safe. When you're certain about something, when you think you know how things work, your brain relaxes. The world feels manageable. You feel in control. But here's a problem. Most of what you're certain about is wrong, or at least incomplete, or true in some contexts, but not others, or was true at some point, but isn't anymore. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, constantly reminded himself of how little he actually knew. He wrote, "Everything is opinion, not fact. Everything you hear is opinion, not fact. Everything you see is perspective, not truth. Think about that. The emperor of Rome, surrounded by advisors telling him what's true, what's right, what must be done. And he's reminding himself that it's all just opinion and perspective. He understood that certainty is an illusion, and maintaining that illusion prevents you from seeing reality clearly. I see this all the time in my professional life. Someone has success with a particular strategy, they think they know what works. They double down on that strategy, and then the market changes, customer preferences shift, new technology emerges, and their certainty becomes their downfall. They can't adapt because they're too busy defending what they think they know. Or in relationships, you think you know your partner, you've been together for years, you know what they like, what they don't like, how they'll react. Expect people change. They grow, they evolve, their needs shift, but you're operating an outdated script with an outdated knowledge, treating them like the person they used to be instead of the person they are now. And you wonder why relationships feel stale, why conflicts keep arising. The prison of certainty is comfortable. That's what makes it prison. You can spend your whole life in there, convinced you understand how things work, never realizing the world has moved on and left you behind. So how do you recognize when your knowledge has become an obstacle? Here are some warning signs. We love leading indicators here. First leading indicator / warning sign is you find yourself frequently saying, I know, or I already know that. Every time those words come out of your mouth, pause. Ask yourself, do I really know this? Or do I think I know this? And more importantly, is my knowing preventing me from learning more? Second warning sign, you're not getting the results you want, but you're not changing your approach. This is huge. If you're doing something and it isn't working, but you keep doing it because you're certain it should work, you're trapped in certainty. The Stoics would call it irrational. Reality is telling you your knowledge is incomplete or wrong, but you're ignoring reality in favor of your beliefs. Third warning sign, you get defensive when someone challenges your perspective. If your immediate reaction to disagreement is defensiveness rather than curiosity, that's a sign you're more committed to being right than to finding the truth. The Stoics valued truth over ego. They wanted to be corrected when they were wrong. Epictetus encouraged his students to seek out people who would challenge their beliefs. Fourth warning sign, you haven't changed your mind about anything important in a long time. If your major beliefs and approaches are exactly the same as they were 5 years ago, you're probably not learning. You're probably reinforcing what you already think you know. Think about it. In 5 years, you've consumed information, had experiences, met new people, faced new challenges, and none of that changed your mind about anything. That statistically is unlikely unless you've been filtering everything through your existing beliefs and rejecting anything that doesn't fit. Fifth warning sign, you find yourself teaching more than learning. There's nothing wrong with sharing knowledge, but if you're always the expert, always a teacher, always the one with the answers, when do you learn? When do you sit at the feet of someone who knows more than you? When do you become the student? The Stoics believed in lifelong learning. Seneca, in his 70s, was still studying philosophy, still reading, still seeking wisdom. He never thought he had arrived. He understood that learning is endless if you stay humble enough to remain a student. In Zen Buddhism, there's a concept called Shoshin, which is beginner's mind. It's a practice of approaching every situation as if you're encountering it for the first time with openness, eagerness, and lack of preconceptions. Shunryu Suzuki wrote, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. This is it. This is the whole problem with thinking you know. When you think you're an expert, you see fewer possibilities. Your knowledge narrows your vision instead of expanding it. You filter reality through what you think you know and you miss what's actually there. This isn't pretending to be ignorant. It's about intellectual humility combined with genuine curiosity. It's a recognizing that even in domains where you have expertise, there's always more to learn. Research from Harvard Business School on innovation and creativity found that teams who were encouraged to approach problems with the beginner's mind, questioning assumptions, considering multiple perspectives, staying open to unconventional solutions, consistently outperformed teams of experts who relied on existing knowledge. The study showed that expertise can actually inhibit innovation when it's not balanced with openness to new approaches. Here's how I practice beginner's mind in my whole own life. When I'm in a conversation, especially with someone who disagrees with me or sees things differently, I try to approach it with curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of thinking I know better, I ask myself, what can I learn from this perspective? What might they see that I'm missing? When I'm facing a problem, instead of immediately applying my existing knowledge, I try to ask, if I were encountering this for the first time, what would I notice? What assumptions am I making? What if the opposite were true? When I'm reading or learning, instead of looking for confirmation of what I already believe, I actively look for information that contradicts my beliefs. But here's where it gets really challenging. It's not enough to approach new situations with beginner's mind. You also have to actively unlearn that are no longer serving you. Unlearning is harder than learning, much harder, because learning is additive. You're adding new information to your mental model. Unlearning is reconstructive. You're dismantling parts of your mental model and rebuilding them. As your brain resists this, it's invested enormous energy in building your current understanding of the world. Changing that understanding feels like losing something, even when you're actually gaining something better. The Stoics practiced unlearning through regular self-examination. Marcus Aurelius would review his day, his thoughts, his actions, and ask, where was I wrong? What did I misunderstand? What needs to be reconsidered? This is incredibly difficult because it requires you to be honest about your mistakes and limitations. Most people avoid this. They rationalize their errors, blame external circumstances, or simply don't reflect at all. But that means they keep making the same mistakes, holding the same misconceptions, operating on the same flawed assumptions. Here's a practice I've developed for intentional unlearning. Once a quarter, I identify one belief or approach that I've held for years and I actively try to challenge it. I ask these questions. Is this still true? Is this still serving me? What evidence contradicts this? What would change if I believed the opposite? Sometimes I conclude that my original belief was correct, but often I discover that my thinking has become outdated, that I've been holding on to something that was true in one context but isn't true anymore, and that I've been operating on incomplete information. If I hadn't been unwilling to unlearn my belief about hard work being the answer to everything, I would have burned out and failed. The belief that once served me had become an obstacle. There's a concept in decision making called strong opinions loosely held. It was coined by Paul Sappho, a forecaster and essayist. The idea is that you should develop strong opinions based on the best available evidence, but hold them loosely enough that you can change them when better evidence emerges. This is pure Stoic thinking. The Stoics believed in using reason to form judgments, but they also believed in updating those judgments when new information became available. They valued consistency in values, but flexibility in beliefs. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if anyone can refute me, Show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from a wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's a truth I'm after, and the truth never harmed anyone. That's the attitude. Not, I'm right, I'll defend my position no matter what, but I'm trying to find truth, and if you can show me I'm wrong, you're helping me. This is radically different from how most people operate. Most people form opinions, they defend them like territory. Any challenge to their opinion feels like a personal attack. Any evidence that contradicts their belief gets dismissed or rationalized away. In practice, think about Stoic approach. Form the best opinion you can with the information you have, act on it decisively, but remain open to updating it when new information emerges. I'll repeat it, strong opinions, loosely held. This balance between having conviction and remaining flexible is one of the hardest skills to develop because conviction without flexibility leads to dogmatism and stagnation. But flexibility without conviction leads to wishy-washiness and paralysis. The Stoics nailed this balance. They had strong values, courage, temperance, justice, wisdom. That didn't change. But their specific beliefs about how to apply those values, their understanding of situations, their strategies and approaches, those changed constantly based on new information and experience. Research from MIT Sloan School of Management on adaptive expertise showed that most effective leaders and decision makers are those who combine strong frameworks, core principles that remain stable, with flexible applications, specific strategies that change based on context. The study found that this combination of stability and adaptability was the strongest predictor of long-term success in complex, changing environments. Let me give you one final framework. For staying in the learning mode instead of knowing mode, prioritize questions over answers. Most people are obsessed with having answers. It feels good to know. If you feel confident, you want to feel like you have all the answers, but that's not how it works. Here's what I've learned. The quality of your life is determined by quality of your questions, then the quality of your answers. Good questions open up possibilities. They reveal new perspectives. They uncover assumptions. They lead to learning. The Stoics were master questionnaires. Socrates, who heavily influenced Stoic philosophy, was famous for the Socratic method, asking questions to relieve contradictions in people's thinking and help them arrive at truth through inquiry rather than instruction. Here are the kind of questions that keep you in learning mode. What am I assuming here? This question reveals your hidden beliefs and gives you a chance to examine whether they're accurate. What would I need to believe for the opposite to be true? This question forces you to consider alternative perspectives and breaks you out of your confirmation bias. What would change my mind about this? The question tests whether you're actually open to new information or just defending a fixed position. What don't I know about this situation? This question keeps you humble and curious instead of certain and closed. What could I be wrong about? The question invites self-examination and prevents overconfidence. What would someone who disagrees with me say? The question helps you understand other perspectives instead of dismissing them. When you make these questions a regular practice, you stay in growth mode. You don't get trapped in certainty. You remain open, curious, and capable of learning. I try to approach conflicts with curiosity and open or start my meetings with questions instead of answers. I try to end my day asking what I learned instead of just reviewing what I accomplished. The shift from answer orientation to question orientation changes everything about how you move through the world. You stop needing to be right all the time. You stop feeling threatened by disagreement. You start seeing every interaction as an opportunity to learn something. For going deeper on this topic of unlearning and maintaining beginner's mind, I highly recommend this book by Adam Grant. It's called Think Again, The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know. Adam Grant is an organizational psychologist at Wharton, and this book is all about the importance of rethinking your opinions and beliefs. He argues that in a rapidly changing world, the ability to reconsider and revise what you know is more important than what you currently know. He breaks down different modes of thinking. Example, preacher mode, defending our beliefs. Prosecutor mode, attacking others' beliefs. Politician mode, seeking approval. And scientist mode, testing hypotheses and updating based on evidence. He argues that we should spend more time in scientist mode, treating our beliefs as hypotheses to be tested rather than truths to be defended. This book is full of research and real-world examples of people and organizations that succeeded by unlearning outdated beliefs and approaches. Grant shows that the best thinkers are those who are willing to be wrong, who actively seek out information that contradicts their views, and who update their beliefs based on evidence. What I love about this book is that it's not just about intellectual humility in the abstract. Grant provides concrete practices for building a culture of rethinking in your personal life, your relationships, and your work. He shows you how to have better disagreements, how to educate people without lecturing them, how to build organizations that learn rather than stagnate. If you are serious about growth, about staying relevant, about continuing to learn throughout your life, Think Again is an essential read. Let me share 2 powerful quotes from Think Again that capture today's message perfectly. The first one is, we listen to views that make us feel good instead of ideas that make us think hard. It's awesome because it's easier to just consume information that confirms what you already believe and makes you feel smart. That's not learning, that's just reinforcing. Real learning happens when you encounter ideas that challenge you, that make you uncomfortable, that force you to reconsider what you thought you knew. The second quote, the purpose of learning isn't to affirm our beliefs. It's to evolve our beliefs. Perfect. If your learning isn't changing you, changing what you think, how you see the world, what you believe, then you're not actually learning. You're just collecting information that supports your existing worldview. True learning transforms you. It makes you different than you were before. So here's what I want you to take away from this episode. The most powerful thing you can do is cultivate what Stoics called wisdom and what Zen Buddhists call beginner's mind, approaching every situation with humility, curiosity, and openness to learning. This doesn't mean abandoning your knowledge or pretending to be ignorant. This means holding your beliefs lightly enough that you can update them when better information emerges. It means being more committed to truth than to being right. It means asking better questions instead of defending your answers. Starting today, I want you to identify one thing you're certain about, a belief, an approach, a way of doing things, and actively question it. Ask yourself, what if I'm wrong about this? What evidence contradicts this? What would I need to believe for the opposite to be true? You might conclude that your original belief was correct. That's fine, but you hold it with more wisdom and less arrogance. Or you might discover something new, something that transforms your understanding and opens up new possibilities. Either way, you're learning. And in a world that changes constantly, the ability to keep learning, to unlearn what's outdated and relearn what's emerging is the most valuable skill you can develop. Thank you for listening to Spark and Hustle. If this episode challenged you, something that you thought you knew, share it with someone who needs to question their certainty. And remember, stay bold, stay soft, and keep going.